Okay, so here we go. Good morning, everybody. I know you've all been listening to our little banter over here. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Jocasta Prince Watson, the director of the Center for Global Learning. And with me today are David Nachman and Ludka Zimovcak, who are actually the partners, right, of Napcan
Phulwani
Phulwani
and
and
Zimovcak.
Zimovcak. Very nice. Okay, here we go. And we just want to thank them for offering this complimentary webinar to our students and graduates of St. Peter's University. So without further ado, I will pass this on to you.
Thank you so much, Yokasa. Thank you for having us. It's always a pleasure. Obviously, it would be more fun in person, but we're glad that we were able to squeeze this presentation anyway. And maybe it's even better because it can be recorded so it can reach more students if they need it. So my name is Ludka Zimovcak. I'm an immigration attorney. I've been practicing for close to 20 years, most of it with David. David is my law partner. And just to tell you a little bit of what we do, so we do only immigration and nationality law. So immigration is a huge area of law. We deal with employment-based immigration, family-based immigration, humanitarian cases, you name it. Our clients are students, individuals, companies, huge companies, schools. So it ranges really from small clients to huge clients. We also handle Canadian immigration as well. So in case you think that you need a colder weather, we can help you with Canadian immigration as well. Immigration is federal. So it doesn't really matter where we are. We are in New Jersey, but it doesn't really matter because we actually help clients from all over the US and all over the world. Um, so that's very brief overview, and I'm going to turn it to David to
Thanks so much.
introduce himself.
Thank you so much, Ludka. And so I want to first of all thank you, Costa, for inviting us to make this presentation. And I just want to say that I wish that all DSOs and ISOs were to have the foresight to have a program like this put on for you guys because it really gives you a nice lay of the land and helps you to understand what the right questions are to ask. For those of you who are doing OPT, who are in this program, now is a good time, of course, to start to talk to your employer about the possibilities of doing H-1B registration for you for the next fiscal year. For those of you who, are students who, let's say freshmen, sophomores, juniors, you're going to want to know how this rolls out for your future. So that's what we're here to do. So with that, I'm going to turn it back to Ludka. We'll go right into our program. And I hope that if you have any questions, you'll be able to put them into the chat, I guess, is going to be the best so we can
Yes.
monitor that. And also, I just want to say that, there's a lot of really great information out there. There's a lot of really bad information out there. Just be careful where you're getting your information because we hate when people are misled. Ludka and I will both probably hit on that a little bit, but please do not use Chat GPT to get
That's
the
my
answers
speech.
here
Yeah,
to get your
absolutely.
yeah I just got off the phone with a client who was telling me that he was trying to make a determination as to which visa category based upon Chat GPT, and I said I don't think that's a really good idea. And in fact, it took him to a certain point where at least he had three good options, but unfortunately, it didn't take him all the way where he needed to be. So we were able to take him to where he needed to be after reviewing the resume. So again, great resource, but it's not going to give you all the answers. With that also, and off of that, I want to say we are not offering legal advice here. We are just presenting this for educational purposes. If you want legal advice, of course, it's always a good idea to speak to a lawyer because immigration related issues as they apply to you are not cookie cutter and apply to everyone. Your case is your case. and it's not your friend's
And
case.
friend's case is different. I can guarantee you that, even if you think that the two cases are similar, they're not. So I would say stay away from friends' advice.
So
Um,
what's going on, Ludka? I
yeah,
mean,
let's
we've
just
been
talk
busy,
about,
haven't we? Right?
yes, it's been extremely busy. Um, a lot is happening. We were just chatting with you, Costa, that yeah, a lot of changes are happening, and typically changes are happening on Friday afternoon, so everyone can freak out. But let's just quickly talk about what's important for students. Maintain your status. And, I remember for the past 15, 20 years, we always talk about it, that it's so critical to maintain your own non-immigrant status, whether you're F1, J1, whatever status you have. So what does that really mean? So it means that you don't do any unauthorized work, you don't get trouble with the law because that, you may end up in deportation proceedings. Um, Make sure you're on top of your I-20, that your CVIS record is okay. Your I-94, this is really important. When you travel out of the country, you enter with the visa. Once the visa expires, it's okay. Once you're in the US, we don't care about it. The controlling document will be I-94. It's critical that you check your I-94 upon entry. There are just too many mistakes that government will make with regards to the I-94. For example, instead of F1, you could be admitted as B2 visitor, which is a problem because you cannot study as a visitor. So always check your I-94. If there is a problem, definitely have it corrected with the CBP. There is an email. It's not that complicated. You will need to submit it in the future. So let's say you do change your status to H-1B, or you're doing the green card, whatever else you're doing after F1, they will be asking you about I-94, I-20s, CPT, OPT, about everything. So you need to keep your documents in order. Track, if you're on OPT, track your unemployment days, because all of that will come up. Now, as far as what documents you should carry, that was a huge discussion a few months ago with regards to registration. So you're supposed to have documentation, your ID with you. Because in case you are stopped, let's say you happen to be in a club and there is a raid. And if you don't have anything on you, they're going to detain you. They're going to arrest you. So, I don't want to say, even though you should be carrying your passport, maybe not a good idea when you go hiking to carry your original passport, but definitely have something at least on your phone, especially I-20, because you need to present yourself. You need to be able to show something, that you are in valid status, especially, for example, when you're traveling within the United States. So just be careful about that. Now, let's talk about travel for a bit because, Christmas is coming, holidays are coming, people want to travel outside of the United States. Our advice is, do not travel if it's not an emergency, especially if you need to do visa processing. It's not the best time because if you don't have to, why to risk it right now? There are so many changes right now. They are changing everything, revamping everything at Department of State. Not just Department of State here too, but Department of State, that's the embassy. So I'm sure you heard extreme wedding. They are checking everything. Social media. You need to set it on public instead of private. We hear a lot about 221Gs, which is administrative processing, which is random. That could mean you could be stuck for 2 weeks, 2 months, 2 years. There is just no time limit how long they're going to do it. So bottom line is, if you don't have to travel, don't. If you want to go for a vacation to, what did you say, David? San Martin or
I
Jamaica,
think Yocasta
whatever?
said Jamaica. Yeah.
Like, don't go to Florida. Because anytime you leave the United States, it's a risk and you may not be able to enter. I don't want to scare everyone, but that's today's reality. Um, Again, a lot of scrutiny at the embassy, a lot of scrutiny at the port of entry, CBP, when you're entering. They can look at your phone. So be careful. They're looking for Americanism? Are you
Whatever that is.
posting, whatever it is, are you posting any political views that maybe are not in line with the current government? You're liking something that maybe, is not the best and it's not, again, in line with current administration. So be careful, be careful. Or, I've had a student once like that. Let's say they're going to take you to secondary inspection, they're looking at your phone, and there is the whole discussion about next shift, and you do not have OPT. So it's unauthorized employment. Like that's a huge problem.
I saw your message.
Yeah, that would mean expedited removal for sure. So bottom line, again, I don't want to scare everyone, but as long as you do everything, by the book, you're gonna be okay. Stay out of trouble, you know, be on top of your immigration status, and you will be fine. Anything else, David, I missed?
The only thing I think we should probably mention is that maybe some of the students heard what happened in the spring, where they ran an algorithm through the CVIS as well as the CIC databases and picked up on minor crimes that some of the students were involved in, and they led to terminations altogether of the students, just dropping them out of uh, the CVIS system. So obviously they reversed themselves and everyone was put back in, but a lot of folks did leave the country. And if they left the country and they had minor issues and presented themselves back at the consulate, what unfortunately happens is that then they get put under 221G. Now, I think it's also important just to let the students know where this emanates from is back when Trump took office, he implemented this extreme vetting executive order. So that's what that is. So this is a form of of extreme vetting, and this extreme vetting is going. It's at the consulate. It's at the USCIS office. It's also at the port of entry when folks enter, which again leads to the reason why Ludka is suggesting try not to do any non-essential travel.
One other thing, just to mention to keep everyone informed, there is a new proposal for removing the
DS.
DS,
Yes.
which is duration of status. So when I was talking about the I-94, right now your I-94 should reflect that your status is valid for duration of status, D/S. And the new proposal pretty much talks about removing the DS, and it's going to be it's going to be date certain, same as visitors, H-1Bs, everyone else. It's going to be specific date. It's not a final rule yet. We were just chatting about it. Probably sometimes after New Year. They're reviewing comments right now. But obviously that may complicate things a little bit because, this is going to be valid. Your I-94 will be valid only until the program or the longest would be 4 years. If you want to study and go on to do master's degree, PhD, or whatever it is, you would have to file an extension within the United States on Form I-539. So it's another vetting for the government because you're going to be filing application. But I don't want to go too deep into it because it's proposal. But it's going through proper channels. So I think we're going to see something soon. So I would say just stay tuned on that, what's going to happen, because it will definitely affect F1s, J1s. So let's see. I'm sure you're going to hear about it. And
Right.
last,
And they're doing it also it's so they said it's in the name of additional vetting, but I believe that it's really in the name of continuing to monetize the immigration system because they're going to be charging additional fees. And I think that they know that Yocasta doesn't have enough work to do. So what they're doing is they're looking to drive the DSOs and the ISOs crazy because you're going to have to keep going back to them for these extensions. So like Ludka said, it's really going to be interesting to see what the ultimate outcome is on this because it's still in the rulemaking process, but just keep an eye out.
yeah, and last thing I just want to emphasize when we're talking about the embassy, there are no interview waivers anymore. So you have to go in person for for your visa stamping. And number two, you need to go to your home country. You need to go to the
Yes.
country of residence. So you cannot go, if you're from India, you cannot just go to Canada. You have to go back to your home country. This is important. I think this started beginning of September.
Unless
So,
you have PR in Canada. If you have PR in Canada, then you could go to Canada. Yeah.
and what is PR?
Permanent residence.
Good.
Yeah. Sorry.
So,
Yes.
as you were talking about the additional fees, so yeah, we do have additional 250 visa integrity fee, whatever that means. They're adding at the consulates, and it's supposed to be refundable, but it's again not too clear how it's going to be refundable, so time will tell. But yeah, I would say on every front, they're just adding some fees to everything. The Was it $1,000 for advanced parole, for the parole?
Mhm.
They are
Asylum
definitely
fee.
smart. They're making
Yeah.
money.
Yep.
So just to give you a little bit of overview of, what's going on, we do not like to talk about politics, but, unfortunately, it affects immigration. So every 4 years, we've gone from one side to the other. It just really affects immigration. So right now, what we see is a lot of deportations, a lot of scrutiny, tough cases. Just because before this presentation, I received one decision, and I'm not in the best mood right now. Just reading it, they're just tough, I would say. A lot of RFEs issued, a zero tolerance policy, not very flexible, which is totally something else what we had during Biden's administration, where, you know, we could try whatever we wanted because they were very flexible. So if you had a case that was a borderline, it was a good idea to file and just see what happens. Now it's not the time to try anything or test anything. So, again, we had 4 years of very flexible immigration, very welcoming, immigration friendly. Prior Trump's administration was similar to now. I think now it's a little bit worse. Obama's administration, we had some new programs, which was good, but there were a lot of deportations, I have to say. But I just had discussion with somebody the other day. The difference is I think media was not that involved. I don't think like people really knew about it at the time. Right now, I think the media is like everywhere. It's making it worse. People are afraid, scared. Even like we get calls, we're just talking about it from US citizens. They're asking us, can they deport me? Can I travel? So, it's a lot of fear out there, which is definitely not good, but this is just to show you like the full picture, how current administration or how politics, really is affecting immigration. It is political football after all. So that's where we are. We just have to take it one day at a time and, see what happens and what other changes, because I'm sure there are going to be more changes as we go. And this is our favorite slide. It just shows how the immigration system works. So it's really important for you to understand, especially if you're planning maybe to get work visa after your OPT or you're thinking about the green card in the future. It's important to just see how the system works. And I'm gonna let David start off.
Thanks, Ludka. So the U.S. immigration law. So this is a snapshot of the U.S. immigration law system. The reason why we like to take you through it is to just have you understand where you are relative to these other benefits that might be available. And so I'm going to start with the first column, and I've already been told that I have to rifle through this very quickly. So I'm going to do that super fast. But before I do that, I think it's really important for you to understand that the U.S. immigration law system is a spectrum that runs from the left-hand side to the right-hand side of this chart. There are various categories that you go through, which is why we refer to it as an immigration journey. And we're here, of course, to help folks get through all of these steps. So to start with, that first category is for individuals who don't have any status. And you might think that they don't have options, but actually, folks who don't have status in the US, they do have some options. In fact, Ludka and I were kicking around some very interesting options where people can actually be citizens and not even know about it, right, Ludka? Like people can acquire citizenship in the US, through, we'll say, inheritance, if you will, through their parents, and they may not even know. We've actually had a case where an individual was put into a removal proceeding. We did some
Due to
research
the
and we found
arrest
out, yeah, and we found out that the individual was actually a
was
citizen and shouldn't have been in a removal proceeding.
that's
So
our favorite success story.
yeah, it would have been embarrassing if the government had deported a U.S. citizen, right? So the first category there are these are all programs that are generally speaking, they're humanitarian in nature. I'm just going to quickly mention DACA is for the Dreamers. That's deferred action for childhood arrivals that was implemented under Obama. U visas are for victims of certain crimes. 245I benefits they refer to it as an amnesty, but it wasn't really an amnesty. It's really a benefit that's available to individuals who made what are called qualified filings prior to April 30th of 2001. And probably all of you were too young to get that benefit. However, what's interesting is that you can inherit that from your family. So what you can do is check with your parents and see if they made qualified filings. Marriage to a US citizen, always a great option, fastest, cheapest, and easiest way to get a green card. However, it has to be bona fide, has to be a real marriage. So if you're thinking about going down that road, we do quite a number of those cases. However, we insist that they be bona fide marital relationships. You don't want to get involved in that if it's not real. You can also marry a green card holder. It's a slightly different process and takes a little bit longer, but that might be a good way to get status in the US. T visas are people who are trafficked to the United States. TPS those are temporary protected status. These are individuals who are from certain countries. This is a humanitarian benefit that's presently under it's under a lot of scrutiny right now by the government, and they're eliminating TPS for various countries. The one you may have heard about is Venezuela, which has been sort of at the center of tremendous confusion because the litigation is pending, and so they keep going back and forth as to when the work authorization, which accompanies the TPS, is going to be eliminated. There's also a benefit called parole, and parole is also under fire by the government. There is parole in place, which is highly discretionary, but it's still a benefit that's available, and military parole, which is also a possibility where if you have an individual who is a direct relative of yours who's in the military, then you might be able to apply for parole in place. So those are the benefits that could potentially be available to you, and there are others, but these are the ones that are probably the most salient and the ones that we deal with on a regular basis. But what I want to do now is hand it over to Ludka so she can talk a little bit about the status that you're most familiar with, which is the non-immigrant student, international student visa, and how that interfaces with the green card and then ultimately citizenship. So Ludka,
So hopefully,
was that fast enough?
thank you so much. So hopefully you will not end up in those, in the no status column. And if you're not going to maintain your F1, that what we, discussed, you are going to end up there. So obviously the idea is that you stay as a non-immigrant. Most of you, I'm assuming, are F1s. So it's a non-immigrant status with pure non-immigrant intent. Other example would be J or visitor. Why is it a pure non-immigrant intent? Because you cannot have intent to immigrate and permanently stay in the US. When you applied for the visa, you had to show that you will return back and you have strong ties to your home country. But within non-immigrant visa classification, we do have those visas that have dual intent. For example, H-1B. So these are your work visas that are long-term and will allow you to apply for the green card. These are your best type of visas that you can have. So the idea is if you're thinking about the green card, because typically this is the question we get, how do I become citizen or how do I become green card holder? We usually start, what can we do to switch you over from F1 that has limited validity to a more stable long-term type of work visa within non-immigrant classification. I'm going to use H-1B as example because it's a perfect example. So once you have that H-1B, you will have 6 years to initiate the green card process, and it's much safer because in case the green card petition is denied, nothing happens to you. You continue having your H-1B and you can refile or try a different green card category, but it's much safer. Also, if you're from one of the countries that are retrogressed, India, China, Mexico, Philippines, there's a long wait time for Indian nationals. It could be 15 years to get a green card. Meanwhile, you have to maintain non-immigrant status. You're not going to be an F1 student for 15 years. So that's why it's better to first figure out how you can change your status to a different non-immigrant visa classification and then start the green card process. Of course, it's not for everyone. There are exceptions. For example, David mentioned marriage to U.S. citizen. So if you're an F1, you fall in love, you get married, of course, go ahead and file a green card application. You can get a green card really quick, assuming it's a real bona fide marriage. For the green card classification, you could have several going. It doesn't have to be one. You could have family-based green card going if you have family members, such as a parent that is a green card holder or U.S. citizen. Also, green card holder spouse, that will work as well. For the employment-based green cards, there are some that are self-petition. Not everyone will qualify for that, but you could have that. You could also have another category that is maybe employer-sponsored. You can have several at the same time. Also, if you qualify for DV lottery, you should do that as well. You never know. And that just leads me to another point. It's a little bit delayed this year, and they are making some changes and they will announce what those are and they will soon open it up. So this is just coming. Once you're a green card holder for 5 years, you can apply for citizenship. If you're living with the U.S. citizen and you are married for at least 3 years, you can apply after 3 years, but you don't have to. You can just remain on a green card. That's not a problem at all. So it's a very general overview how it typically works. But, generally speaking, what we see is student applies for OPT while on F1, potentially for STEM OPT. During OPT or STEM OPT, student obtains H-1B work visa. And once the H-1B is granted, the employer will start green card processing. That's a very typical path. Of course, there are many different variations. It doesn't have to be H-1B. It could be a different work visa. It could be TN, could be O1, and so on. But it's I would say for majority students, this is a typical path that we usually see. So let's go to the million-dollar question. I think a lot of people are interested in H-1B. And what is the H-1B? So David, what
I
is
don't know.
required?
Yeah, I don't know that it's $1 million question. It's $100,000 question lately.
Well, we'll get to that.
So what is the H-1B? The H-1B is a professional and specialty occupation worker visa. It's set forth in the regulations, and the idea behind it is that an individual has the equivalence of a U.S. baccalaureate degree, and the job offer has to require at least a bachelor's degree, and also that the job needs to be related to the degree. So these are the 3 elements that need to be shown when the H-1B is done. And you can really start and should start early thinking about the H-1B if you're in OPT right now. We'll talk about the registration period, which is in March, but now is a really good time because when you're coming up on the holidays, usually the employer calls you in and says to you, we really like you and we'd like you to stay. So how can we do that? Well, The way that that's done is that you'll say to the employer, well, the H-1B lottery is coming up, and if you'd like me to stay, you could register me in the H-1B lottery. So that's how the employer can assist you. So the next few slides are going to help you to understand what your requirements are for the H-1B and what the employer's requirements are. So this is an example of some of the specialty occupations. It's sort of common sense, but the chemists, biologists, engineers, physicists, software developers, systems analysts, accountants, economists, teachers, and so on. These are all professional and specialty occupations. But basically and ultimately, the question is a bachelor's degree normally required for the job? And I'll give you an example. There's one that's not on this list, and I used it, I guess, the other day. And I had a philatelist who came to me and asked me to do a petition for him. And I said, well, I didn't even know what a philatelist was. And I looked it up in the Dictionary of Occupational Titles. And it turns out that it does require a bachelor's degree. A philatelist is a stamp collector. So we did an H-1B for a stamp collector. And because they require a bachelor's degree, that qualified it as a specialty occupation. So how do you prove that a bachelor's degree is normally required? Well, the U.S. government, specifically the U.S. Department of Labor, has what are called, there are certain resources that are available, and these are publicly available online. You can sign on and you can get these. The first one is the Dictionary of Occupational Titles, which is kind of a cool book. It's actually broken up into two separate volumes. One is skilled positions and the other is unskilled positions. And if you look at the skilled positions, all of them have SVPs of 7 or greater. SVP is a specific vocational preparation code. So that's the first thing that you would look at to see whether or not it's a professional position. The next thing you'd look at is what's called the U.S. Department of Labor's Occupational Outlook Handbook, which is a sister resource to the Dictionary of Occupational Titles. And there they talk about SOCs, SOC codes, which are occupational classification codes, and how those occupational classifications work in terms of what the minimum educational requirements are. There's also something that is available to you it's called ONET, and I refer to it as sort of the Dictionary of Occupational Titles on steroids. It has job zones, and it's posted online, and job zones of 4 or greater are considered to be professional. So you can look at ONET. And you can also look in the newspapers. And if you find comparable positions in the newspapers, which you can open up the New York Times on a Sunday and see the wanted ads. And if you can find comparable positions and you can demonstrate that those comparable positions require a bachelor's degree, then that would prove that it's a specialty occupation. But ultimately, the ultimate question and the most important question is, does the employer require a bachelor's degree for the job?
Right. So the biggest issue with the H-1Bs is that there's just not enough H-1Bs. That's the huge problem. So we only have 65,000 H-1Bs per year, an additional 20,000 for those with U.S. master's degree and higher. This year we had over 340,000 H-1B registrations. And if you think that's a lot, it's not that much, because 2 years ago, we had about 800,000. Yokasta, you have a question?
Yes, thank you, Ludka. I was just wondering how this new announcement for the Department of Education with a list of degrees that are no longer considered professional degrees is going to affect some of our students or individuals who are looking to apply for H-1Bs or other other employment-based classifications.
So, with regards to the H-1B, the position, not the degree, the position needs to be a professional one. That's number one. And then they're just looking, if the student has minimum of a bachelor's degree in that specialty. So, for example, if, it's a chemist, do they have a minimum of a bachelor's degree in chemistry from accredited school? So that's all what David was discussing. They want to see that the position is professional and then that the beneficiary, so the applicant, actually has degree. It could be foreign degree as well, if it is equivalent to the US bachelor's degree to the minimum. So I'm not sure if I answered your question, but what they're looking at, is this degree accredited? If it's a US degree, that's all.
Thank you. Thanks, Ludka.
So because we have such a huge number of H-1B applications or registrations, the government started doing sometimes around 2008, 2009 lottery, totally random lottery. That lottery happens only once a year, and this is in March. And there is a fee for entering to the lottery. The employer has to pay $215. And by end of March, the government runs the lottery and they will announce who was selected. Totally random. Only then, on April 1st, up until June 30th, the employers, it's not you, the company will file the actual H-1B for those that were selected in a lottery. So, number one, we do have a proposal for selection of the H-1B. So we don't know what the final rule is going to look like. Hopefully, we're going to know soon, hopefully before March 1st, when typically the H-1B registration starts. But what it is, it's the higher the salary, the better the chance in a lottery. So when the employer is filing labor condition application, that is the first step. They need to assign a level. Is it level 1 job, which is an entry level, or it's the highest, which is level 4? If so, what the government is proposing, if it's a level 1, they will get only one chance in a lottery. If it's level 2, and then obviously it goes up. If it's level 4, you get 4 chances in a lottery. So let's see what the final rule will really look like, or even if it will go through. But we are expecting changes for the selection, how that's gonna work out. So let's see. And another important change that happened in September was the 100,000. So yeah, that's the $1 million question here. To whom it applies, because obviously this was Friday afternoon. Everyone was freaking out. It was very stressful. But bottom line is, it only applies to those that are outside of the United States. They don't have any visa. So H1, if the H1B is filed after September 21st of 2025, and the person is outside of the United States, 100,000 will apply. But if, for example, you're planning to do H1B next year, you're here in valid F1 status, you're maintaining your F1 status, the employer is doing change of status from F1 to H1B, 100,000 will not apply. But now, even more, the government will scrutinize, are you maintaining your F1? So they can be asking questions about your current status. And what could happen is H1B could be approved. If the change of status is denied, you have to go abroad. You have to apply for H1B visa at the embassy, and then 100,000 will apply. With that being said, there is a lawsuit. So we're waiting to hear back. So,
Several lawsuits, yeah.
several. So
Yeah.
it may not even go anywhere further. So, hopefully we'll hear something soon. But again, if you're here, you don't have to really worry about it because it will not apply to you.
Which is really important for the students who are listening to this to communicate to any potential employers who are thinking about doing H-1Bs,
Yeah.
because that is the fear, I think, that at least we're hearing, that a lot of employers think that just because they do an H-1B, that 100,000 is going to apply. So we're communicating to you, and you should communicate to them, that it's very limited, in scope, this new rule. Okay. The period of validity, I think I mentioned it, is initial, or you mentioned it, is initial grant of 3 years with a 3-year extension. And any time that you spend outside the United States, even if it's just a vacation, a short vacation, you're allowed to recapture that time. And you might think that that's not important, but it's really critical, especially for folks from certain backlog countries, which Ludka referred to before. And so backlog countries are addressed in what's called the Visa Bulletin, which comes out from the US Department of State on a monthly basis. And that tells us sort of when people's priority dates, which are the dates when cases are filed, when they're processing those cases. So for folks from India, for folks from China, it's really important that we try to get back as much time as we possibly can, especially if they want to go along toward the green card. So generally speaking, H-1Bs are an initial grant of 3 years with a 3-year extension. However, there is a rule that says that if you get an I-140, which is part of the green card process, it's sort of the second step in the green card process, approved, then what you can do is you can get incremental extensions in 3-year increments if you're backlogged until you get the green card. So that's a really nice rule. And it's one of the reasons why we generally recommend that if and when you get yourself situated on an H-1B with the employer, you should try, if possible, to get on the road to doing a green card as quickly as you possibly can.
And I see question about there is a lot of discussion regarding ending STEM OPT, and if that happens, what happens to the students that are already there is nothing yet. So, we don't have answers for any of these questions, but it would not happen. I don't believe it will happen. That's just my opinion, but also it cannot happen that they will say as of tomorrow, your OPT is not valid. So it usually doesn't work like that. And if it does, there are going to be, trust me, a lot of lawsuits. So it doesn't happen that quick that suddenly next day they would say STEM OPT is gone. So I would say, as David mentioned before, check your resources, concentrate on rules that are already final. There is a lot of discussion about a lot of stuff.
A lot of banter, yeah.
Exactly. But, I wouldn't really worry about it right now.
Ludka, this is something we try to tell our students on a regular basis. It's, if something like that were to happen, of course, an announcement would be made to all of them. And we try not to speculate on some of these
Exactly.
issues.
I agree.
I mean, there is a lot of speculation, there's a lot of guessing, and the reality is that most of us we don't know what's going to happen. And so I think we need to keep our heads and wits and just wait for actual concrete information from the government.
And there are so many changes that are actually happening. So obviously, we do work with students quite a lot. So we've seen these discussions. But to be honest, I'm not paying attention to it yet because it's not at the stage where it would require our attention. There are a lot of things that are happening that, it's already done deal and it's a change. So I wouldn't worry about all these, in the newspaper, somebody says I wouldn't worry about it right now. You can think about it, but it's just, as Jocasta mentioned, it's just speculation. And, let's see what will transpire. Just one day, what I would recommend, one day at the time. H-1Bs, yeah.
Go ahead. Oh, I was just going to say H-1Bs are employer specific. It means that it's keyed to a particular employer. So the employer gets the H-1B for you. There is something called concurrent H-1Bs, which means you can have several H-1Bs and each one could be for a different employer. So that might be a good strategy in order to avoid a potential layoff, is to have maybe 2 H-1Bs in place at the same time, because if you get let go from one, you can maintain your status with the other. H-1Bs are portable, which means that you can start on an H-1B when it's properly filed if you're moving from one H-1B to the other. So that's something that's beneficial for you. A lot of people don't know that H-1Bs can be part-time. They don't have to be full-time. And so that might be a nice way if you have an employer who's, let's say, saying, oh, well, the wage that's being offered is too high. A part-time employment position might ease the pressure, the financial pressure on an employer. So that might be a good way to present an opportunity to an employer who might be looking at you seriously. If we are on an H-1B and there are any material changes that are made with regard to, let's say, moving location, changing the amount of money that you're being paid, or any other changes that might be deemed to be material in nature, you're supposed to do an amendment to the H-1B. So that was under a case called Simeo Systems. Okay. And so there are H-1Bs are exempt. H-1Bs that you have is exempt from the cap. You don't have to go and do another H-1B if you're, let's say, moving to a new employer. So once you have it, you can just keep moving it around. So you don't have to worry about that. Concurrent H-1Bs are also exempt from the cap. And there are statutorily exempt employers, such as not-for-profit organizations conducting research or higher academic institutions of higher education are also exempt. So essentially, they can do as many H-1Bs as they want, and there's no limitation also on the time of year that they do the H-1B, unlike the cap, where Ludka had just gone through and explained to you the parameters about, how you get the H-1B, and they have to do it within 90 days. It's not like that. So you can do it any time of year. So we're actually doing H-1Bs for academic institutions throughout the country throughout the year. Okay.
Just want to quickly take this question. Should a nurse on F1 visa go through H-1B or EB-3? There is no or, because the best would be to go through H-1B and then EB-3.
Yeah, apples and oranges.
It's apples and oranges, so both would be the best. If H-1B is not available, it just depends what country you're from, because there is retrogression actually even for all other countries. So you can start EB-3, but if your F1 expires, you're going to be out of status. So always the best is, as I mentioned at the beginning, keep the H-1B. It would be case by case basis. It just depends on all the details of the case, where the person was born, and so on. So hard to say.
Yeah, the rule or the thinking that an immigration lawyer has for you is preserve your underlying non-immigrant status as long as you can, because that green card case is going to take you a while. And then what you're going to do is, once that green card case is approved and the priority date becomes current, you're going to shift from that long-term non-immigrant work permit to the green card. So that's the idea.
Yeah. So if the H-1B, I know we are running out of time, but sometimes H-1B is not even the best. So we call it alternative. But for some of you, again, just depending on where you're from and what kind of credentials you have, there may be other better options. You need to ensure that you have backup options. If you're going with the H-1B, make sure you already have plan B, plan C, because you don't want to wait to just find out you're not selected in H-1B and then you don't have enough time to do anything else. But what we see, students can just go on and do graduate studies or take PhD. You're going to get another OPT at each educational level. So that's option number one. Then we have all kinds of visas that are based on country of citizenship, based on nationality. So that's something to consider. Just yesterday, for example, I was speaking to somebody who mentioned that, he's from Australia. So I immediately told him, well, you have E3. It's similar to H-1B, but there is no lottery. It's just for Australians, it's for professionals. So it's perfect. You can easily get the E3. The same thing when we hear somebody's from Mexico or Canada, that would be TN. For any of these, actually, there is no numerical limitation other than U visa, and you can apply at any time. So TN Canadians can actually just go to the border, and the same day they're going to come back with the TN. Mexicans have to go to the embassy. So these are really nice options. Even if you later want the H-1B, but at least, you have 3 years on this type of visa and keep trying the lottery. Why would you then want to switch to H-1B? Because, for example, TN or E3 are not dual intent visas. That's number one. And if you are, for example, Indian national born in India, but now you're Canadian, you're still going to fall under India for green card purposes, even if you qualify for the TN. Other
Right.
treaty,
But
yeah,
you have other doors that are open to you. For example, if you become a Canadian passport holder, you can do an E2, right? Or you can do
mm-hmm,
the TN. So that opens those doors.
exactly.
So with regard to the E, I don't know that you mentioned that, but E visas are for treaty traders. E1s are folks that are from treaty countries that are going to work for companies from that treaty country, and E2s are for treaty investors, which is probably one of the closest things to self-employment. What you do is you set up an LLC, you invest in that LLC, and then you go to work for that LLC. And there's a business plan that's required, and also you want to get some office space and put an infrastructure in place. But that probably the treaty investor is again, the closest to self-employment. And Ludka is going to ask me, how much do you have to invest? And the answer is that the government would like to see you invest about $100,000. So you'll invest that into the company from your personal account, but you have to also commit some of those funds. So, they want to see the commitment of those assets so that they are, quote, at risk. And that amount that you commit will depend upon the type of business that you're going into.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't see anything for
I
the
think I
treaty.
did you discuss the O? I think the O1B is just we should mention that's for artists, so individuals who are pursuing an artistic endeavor. Those are our O1Bs. So O1As are people who are extraordinary in their field. A lot of you probably are not going to qualify for O1As because it's a very, very high legal standard, but O1Bs are a lower legal standard. So all you have to do is show prominence or distinction in the field. And again, that's more of an artistic visa. I'll just quickly mention the P3, which is for something that you're doing that might be culturally unique. So P3s are where you're doing something culturally unique, where you're exchanging your culture with the public at large. R visas are for religious workers. There are three different types. There's ministers, priests, and rabbis that are R1s. R2s are professional religious workers, such as teachers in religious schools or religious organizations, and R3s are anyone who's pursuing a traditional religious function. TNs you mentioned, E3s you mentioned, U visa I think you already mentioned, Ludka, right? I visas are for foreign media representatives. So if you find that you can get a position with a foreign media source, so for example, in the United States, writing on behalf of a foreign newspaper, that would be an I visa. And the value of the I visa also is that they're granted DS, similar to your very similar to your F1 or a J1. And the J1, which is kind of hidden down there, is a visa for trainees, students, or interns. And the J visa requires sort of it acts as a bridge between the employer and yourself. So you would sign up for a J1 program and then sort of be put across from that J1 program to an employer. So I know we're running short on time, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So, um, I was somebody asked about the business
Questions?
owner. Yeah, that was a E2. So you have to check if your country qualifies as the E2. You can easily get the full list of E2 countries just by typing in, E2 visa countries. You're going to get the full list. I don't know, David, if you mentioned Canada, Mexico, many European countries, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Japan. A lot of countries have the E2, and that's essentially really self-employment. um, you buy the business or you create a business. So
Exactly.
bottom line is there are many different types of visas, not just the H-1B, even though H-1B is the most used. The key is you need to start thinking about it early on. There's just not enough time to apply for E2, in 2 weeks. You need to set up the business. It's a lot of work. and any other visa. It just requires preparation. So, you know, this seminar just helps you to start thinking about it, to start thinking what you want to do, what you could do. Maybe not you, maybe you are married and your spouse could do E2, and then you are going to be E2 dependent, which is work authorized. So if you really need more in-depth consultation, because this was just a general overview, you definitely can reach out to us. I put in chat our email addresses, or you can visit us on www.visaserve.com. We do offer a consultation, discounted consultation for St. Peter's students. So just make sure you mention you're coming from, that you're claiming Yocasta's discount.
Yeah,
Um,
drop Yocasta's name.
exactly.
Yeah.
That will, get you the $100 consultation, and we can discuss with you it's going to be a deep dive into your credentials and your
Long-term and short-term options, right?
correct. But if you have any quick question, feel free to email us. We're pretty good. Um, do you offer referrals for other law services? Uh, I'm
We
not sure what
if
other
it's if
law.
it's related to immigration, maybe, but if not, we also can provide referrals to folks who we know are reliable. So feel free to reach out for us by email, and we can let you know
Oh,
whether it's something we
LLC
can do or
formation
not.
we can do.
Yes, we do that. Yeah, absolutely. In the state of New Jersey only. We don't do it in other states. Yeah.
Exactly. So, yeah,
So
some final words, David?
So I think, Ludka, you actually gave the best final words, and that is that everyone should be mindful of planning as early as possible. I'm noticing that a lot of folks are waiting till the last minute, and it's really hard. For example, like I'm working with this client now, and I'm getting their investor visa in place in 2 weeks. It's really challenging because I usually like to have like 6 or 8 weeks to get this infrastructure in place. And the thing is that we want to try to file before he falls out of visitor visa status. So for you, for example, for the students who are on, you guys, if your OPT is ending or your STEM OPT is ending, you have a grace period, 60 days. My strong preference is to file before the 60 days are up. And not to, let's say, file for a change of status or an extension, because unfortunately, this administration is really rigid about determining whether or not those cases are going to get approved. So
And what
again,
happens if it's denied and they
well
don't
that
have underlying status?
well, then they're going to have to go outside and they're going to have to go to the U.S. consulate and, potentially submit to a U.S. consular officer who is going to extremely vet them, and they could end up with a 221G, and that could be a tremendous delay. So, we're trying to avoid that by, again, planning in advance and getting the infrastructures in place so that they can move smoothly off of their F1 visas to the things that they need to do beyond the F1.
And of course, if the immigration benefit is denied, in current environment, you don't have any underlying status, you could be placed in the removal
Into
proceedings,
removal proceedings. Yeah,
which is very scary. You don't want to be in that situation.
exactly. So I think the only other
David,
thing is wishing everyone a happy holiday. Yes, Yocasta?
no, I just wanted to thank you and Ludka so much for doing this for our students and for your
Oh, pleasure.
valuable advice and time. We've been working together and referring students to you for many, many years.
Thank you so
And
much.
you've always been absolutely amazing with the work that you do, and we thank you for that. And I just want to tell everybody we will have you on campus eventually, but we will continue to have these kinds of meetings. And once again, thank you for, you know, um, providing so much valuable information to our group.
You're very
Our
welcome.
our pleasure. Our pleasure.
Your
Everyone
stu
have a good afternoon.
I said it before, your students are very lucky to have you to invite us. So not everyone does that. So it's awesome. Thank you, Yocasta.
All right,
Bye,
everybody.
everyone. Bye.
Take
Take
care.
care.
Happy
Thank you
holidays,
so much.
everyone.
Thanks so much.
Bye-bye now.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
thank you. Thank
Bye-bye.
you very much.
Welcome. Bye now.
Bye. Yeah, final కాలేదండి